All right, so just this afternoon, as I was getting ready to come to church, and I had a Bible study together and ready, I was taking a shower and was praying, and the Lord spoke something to me in the shower, and so I've redirected. So I'm very clean and very unprepared. But at least I'm clean, and at least He's prepared. The word that He spoke to me was, don't look left and don't look right. So that's why I was kind of pushing it to get here on time. I sat down and I started going over some scriptures, I came by this scripture. This is the first one that came to my mind, and I want to read a little bit of it out of Joshua chapter 23. If you want to turn there and look with me at Joshua chapter 23. And we'll just see what all the Lord had in mind with that word that He spoke to me late this afternoon. Joshua chapter 23, we'll just start in verse 1. It says, a long time after the Lord had given Israel rest from all the enemies around them, Joshua was old and getting on in years. So Joshua summoned all of Israel, including the elders, the leaders, the judges, the officers, and he said to them, I am old, getting on in years, and you have seen for yourselves everything the Lord your God did to all these nations on your account, because it was the Lord your God who was fighting for you. See, I have allotted these remaining nations to you as an inheritance for your tribes, including all the nations that I have destroyed, from the Jordan westward to the Mediterranean Sea. The Lord your God will force them back on your account and drive them out before you so that you can take possession of their land, and as the Lord your God promised you. Be very strong and continue obeying all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, so that you do not turn from it to the right or to the left, and so that you do not associate let me move over here. This thing is not wanting to cooperate. And so that you do not associate with these nations remaining among you. Do not call on the names of their gods or make an oath to them. Do not worship them or bow down to them. Instead, remain faithful to the Lord your God as you have done to this day. And we'll stop right there for a minute. When I think about that, I can't help but think about how applicable that is to the time that we live in today. God has done so much for this nation. He has driven out so many enemies. He has purged evil and wickedness from the borders of the United States of America. He has caused us to be blessed. He has caused us to prosper. I don't think anybody could question that we are either the most or one of the at least most blessed nations to ever exist on this planet, as far as we know historically. But just as Israel, in the place that they were after God had brought them to the promised land, and after He caused them to overcome city after city, after people, after He assisted them in wars, after He fought wars for them, after He showed Himself faithful on every turn, He knew that the propensity of people, He knew the inclination of men and women, especially as the generations progress. It's one thing to have a revival in one generation and people just jump on the bandwagon and people get saved left and right and they're being baptized in droves and they're coming to know the Lord and there's just this mighty move of God. and we enjoy a time of peace, like Joshua told the people here. We enjoy a time of peace. We enjoy a respite from the wars, a respite from the evil that befalls other nations and other places, and we kind of get relaxed, and then that's normal. That's human nature, is to get relaxed, and we get comfortable. But Joshua gives that warning here that we could reiterate and say to the United States of America, we could say to the church in America, we could say to families in America, now is not a time to get comfortable. Now is not a time to relax. Now is not a time to think, we've got this. What do we need God for? We're so blessed. We've got money. We've got things. Things have been going so good for so long. We've figured out how to manage the economy. We've figured out how to manage the housing market. We've figured out how to, grow our 401ks, and we're learning to live at peace with other nations in the world, and we can get complacent, and we can get comfortable. And when people, and it's human nature, when people get comfortable, not long after, they get restless. If you keep a man challenged, if you keep a person challenged, and if you keep them pushing, you keep them driving toward a goal, they tend to remain focused on that goal. Have you noticed that about people? If you keep them lean and mean, so to speak, they tend to persevere and press on, and they've got a common goal and a drive together. And they seem to have a focus that is undeterred for the most part, and they continue to fight until that goal is achieved. But once we achieve a goal, once we have a thing or have lots of things, we get comfortable and we start to coast. And when we start to coast is when we start to get in trouble, because we think we've got it. We think we're okay. We know that we're blessed. We know that God has favored us. And we get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, we start looking for other things to satisfy. We look for other things to pursue. We had a goal. We had work. We had something that we took some joy and some pleasure in. And we drove and we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. And then we accomplished that goal and we got very comfortable. And then we start to get lazy. And then we start to get bored. And the more comfortable and lazy and bored we get, the more we start looking to the left and looking to the right and start embracing other things that God said do not embrace. Let's read the words, the caution that Joshua had just once more. Talking about, I left, when he said, I left nations there. God always, before I read that from Joshua again, this thought just came to my mind. God always leaves a nation in your path or in your proximity that will test you, that will strengthen you. It will push your buttons. It will be something that would cause you to have to dig deep and find out what you're really rooted in and what you're really grounded in. He's always going to leave a nation. He might leave a nation of, say, called fear, or he might leave a nation called temptation or lust. He might leave a nation called anger. He might leave a nation called greed or complacency, or name the spirit that gets into the heart and the mind of a man or a woman when they've got idle time, when they've got some too much time on their hands and not enough work to do, not enough of a goal to pursue. There will be a nation that will come against them to tempt them, to test them, to try them. And it's by design. God didn't accidentally leave these nations, these enemies, in the promised land. It was by design to keep His people focused, to keep them pressing on, to keep them going forward, and to keep them from getting comfortable, lazy, relaxed, distracted, and bored, which is what so much of America is today. So he tells them, don't associate with these nations that remain among you. Don't call on the names of their gods. Don't make an oath to them. Do not worship them or bow down to them. Instead, remain faithful to the Lord your God as you have done to this day. Remain faithful. Don't compromise. This is something we've been talking the last few weeks about discipling, making disciples, and how to make disciples, and what to teach these disciples, and how to show them the Christ life by example. And one of the things that you're going to have to teach the disciples that you make is to remain steadfast, to keep your head down, or my dad used to say, keep your head down and your butt up, pardon his French. But keep your head down and your butt, keep your nose to the grindstone. He used to tell us around the house, us boys be laying around the house on a Saturday, maybe the yard was mowed and our rooms were cleaned and picked up and dishes were washed, all our common chores. The house looked good and the yard looked good, and our clothes were folded and put up, and if it was a Saturday, our Sunday clothes were already laid out and our shoes were shined and it was ready for Sunday morning. That was just normal everyday stuff. And we'd be lazing around the house, just as Dad used to say, just lollygagging around the house, whatever that means. And then he would say, you boys need to find something to do. Anybody ever had a dad like that? You boys need to find something to do. And we might not get up right away. We might kind of stir a little because Dad did talk, so we had to stir a little, make like at least that we were listening to him. But if he didn't see us getting real busy, he said, you boys will find something to do, or I'll find something for you to do. And we knew exactly what that meant. So we found something to do. We found something to get into that was constructive, something that was not, that didn't run counter to anything that he would approve of. We busied ourselves with something. He did not like when we were idle. He said, if he said it once, he said it 1,000 times when I was growing up. Idleness is a devil's workshop. And so for America, for you, for the disciples that you make, idleness is the devil's workshop. If you don't have something to do, the devil's going to move in. He's going to give you a thought. He's going to give you an idea. He's going to distract you. You're going to think it's okay to associate, at least for a time, with this nation. And remember the nations that I just mentioned. And remember Joshua telling them, don't associate with those nations. And we're going to think for a time it's okay to associate with these nations. There was even a time in Israel's history where it said they served the Lord and they worshiped other gods. And we think about that and we say, well, that's just atrocious. That's unbelievable that they could think that they could serve God and serve the Lord and worship other gods and worship other idols. How did they think they could possibly get away with that? Well, why don't we ask ourselves that very same question? How do we think we could possibly get away with serving the Lord and worshiping other gods, worshiping other idols? Travis and I were talking about the other day, they're building a stadium. I don't know all the stats and I don't know all the numbers, but they're building a stadium in Nashville. I thought we had a stadium, but it's for the Titans. I thought the one we had was for the Titans, but it's got a roof on it. Oh, and that way we can have the Super Bowl here once in every, I don't know, however many years. That they'll Not guaranteed, but we might get the Super Bowl to be hosted in Nashville. So we're going to tear down a perfectly good, that needs a little renovation, stadium, level it to the ground, build a brand new one that costs in the what? What did you tell me it was going to cost? In the billions of dollars. We're going to build one so that, 10 times a year, some boys can go out there and play football. But it's not really for the boys playing football. It's for the billions of dollars that pour in from people who love the idol of the NFL. Cricket, cricket. Boy, we got our idols and we love them and we don't like anybody talking about them. But if you think about the billions, now it may not be your idol. You might just like to watch football, and that is entirely within the realms of possibility. Because I've been there, I like to watch football. I still sit down and enjoy a game every once in a while. but they're not going to get hundreds of thousands of my dollars. My dollars are going to go somewhere else. They're not going to consume my mind and my thought and my time to where I know the stats of every NFL player that's ever come through the Titans. I know I'm stepping on toes tonight, but I'm not done. It's more than just the Titans. That I know the stats of every player that comes through, but I couldn't name the 12 disciples. I know the stats and the records and what the Tennessee used to be and what they are and when they're going to do it and what rookie and what draft and what thing, all the stuff. I know all the stuff, and I could sit here and talk to you guys on a Saturday morning about that till we was blue in the face. And I know all the sports because I've been listening to ESPN. But I couldn't tell you the plan of salvation. One of the most simplest and basic of things in the Word of God. And we couldn't say it. We couldn't recite it. We don't know it. Well, you know what that tells me, and should tell you, is that we have associated with other nations and have made them, whether intentionally, unintentionally, by default, whatever, have made them idols unto ourselves. And that's what we've done. We've looked to the left or we've looked to the right. And we haven't remained strong and steadfast, as was Joshua's charge to the children of Israel, as was Jesus' charge to the disciples when he left and ascended to the Father. Go to all the nations and preach the gospel and make disciples and teach them to do the things that I commanded you. Are we doing that, Randy? Are we everywhere we go, are we making an opportunity? Are we praying and seeking God and asking Him to create an opportunity for us to be a light, to be salt, to be an example? I was talking to somebody the other night. They were ready to get rid of, almost half of the people in the United States that disagreed with them politically. And you guys go over here, and I'm going to go over here, and me and my guys are going to go over here, and y'all just go destroy yourselves if you want to, and we're going to do this. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. These are our brothers and our sisters. These are God's children that you disagree with politically, that you're speaking with such hatred and vitriol about, that you're condemning, that you're slandering, should we be doing that? I mean, is that an acceptable practice now? Did I miss something? Did I wake up and God changed His mind and said it was okay to do those things? No, He hasn't. He hasn't changed His mind. He hasn't, as a matter of fact, He hasn't changed at all in any form or any shape or any fashion. He has remained steadfast, and He calls you and I to do the same. He calls you and I, don't look left, don't look right, don't waver, stay strong, stay steadfast, stay in my word, know my heart, know what I'm saying to you, know what I'm saying to the church. Don't compromise with the world. Don't associate with the world. Don't give in to the world's ways. Don't stop doing things that I've commanded you to do just because the world or the friends or the popular notion tells you don't do it. Don't start doing what they tell you to do because I've told you not to do it. We've got to have a little more backbone about us, a little more strength about us, a little more standing on the rock about us, a little more knowing what the Word says about us, a little more willingness and determination to walk it out rather than continuously looking left and looking right. It's astonishing how many people, and I know I probably am exposed to more of this than most of you are because I'm a pastor, and so I talk to a lot more people, and some of it's because I'm a pastor, and some of it's just because I'm just Chet. I'm just me. That's just my way. It's my nature. I was that before I was a pastor. That I delve into the lives of people. I can go to you and you don't even know it. I can go to you and we can be talking for 5 minutes and I have started, Chris, am I wrong? and I'm asking you questions, and I'm finding out things that I need to know about your spiritual health. And Chris, you need to be doing that. And I'm hoping and believing that you are. And Vince, you need to be doing that. And I can name everybody else in this room. You need to be doing that. You need to be concerned about and have your finger on the spiritual pulse of the people around you, the people that you are to be light for and salt to, and changing the makeup of the world around you. That's what we're called to. That's why we're here. I said to you a few weeks ago, I don't recall exactly when it was, but how I said to the Lord, or I just made not to the Lord, but just made a statement out of frustration, looking around at the condition of the world, saying, man, I just don't belong here. I just feel like such a fish out of water in this place anymore. I don't belong here. And God corrected me and said, you absolutely belong here. I put you here this time for these people. So stop thinking that you don't belong here because you're an oddball, because you're a Christ follower, because you're sold out to Jesus, because your standard is vastly different from the standard of the people in the world around you. Stop thinking you don't belong. Start knowing that you do absolutely belong, and that's exactly why. Because you're so different. Because you know the Word. Because you have established and long since established a relationship with God that has caused you to grow and to mature into a mature man or woman of God that looks like Jesus Christ, that acts like Jesus Christ, that shines a light like He did, that affects people like He did. He's caused you, He's raised you, He's nurtured you to be that person for those around you. And all we have to do is be strong and courageous, and don't look left and don't look right, and understand this is why we're here. I'm not here to get consumed by football. I'm not here to get consumed by money. I'm not here to get lost in things of the world that are fleeting and don't matter. In the grand scheme of things, in the eternal picture, they mean nothing. I'm not here to pour my life into that. I'm here to pour my life into people. Talked to a young man recently who had asked me to kind of guide and guard and help him to be a preacher. And he felt called to the ministry, and I started asking him some of those probing questions just off the cuff, just like, hey, it sure is hot today. And then I started asking the probing questions. And he made some reference that he wasn't where he needed to be, that he was involved in some other things. And I said, okay, this is you ain't gonna like this. I'm gonna let you know that ahead of time. You ain't gonna like this, but you asked me to do this. I want you to remember that. You asked me to do this. I said, this, what I'm talking to you about, is what it's all about. What you're distracted about, what you're caught up in, is a pure 100% distraction. This is what it's about. Knowing Him, devoting your heart to Him, thinking on His things, sharing His things, being concerned about the people around you. As I said a minute ago, having your finger on the spiritual pulse of those around you in your world, wherever that is and however large that is and however it expands and wherever it goes and however many fingers it has on it. You are there to know that and to watch those things and to guard and guide those people. That's why you're there. That's why you're there. This would be probably the last message, Brother Ken, that I feel like, well, I don't know if it'll be the last one or not, on discipleship. But this is the culmination of it. This is all that we've been talking about, all that we should be doing. This is it. This is what it's game time. It's go time. We think we're kind of coasting. Sometimes we feel like we're coasting, but beware when you are coasting. Beware when you got things are going pretty easy and going your way, because that's when we get distracted. That's when we start associating with the things on the left and the things on the right. Wrote down a couple of thoughts and ideas. Didn't have a whole lot of time, but I'm gonna share some of this with you. Compromise. Compromise means to make concessions or accommodations for something or someone that doesn't agree with a certain standard or set of values. A certain standard or set of rules. Compromise. I'm going to make some kind of concession or accommodation. I am going to make it so that you're comfortable because you don't like the gospel. I'm going to make a concession, so I'm going to pull back a little bit on the gospel over here while I'm still preaching the gospel over here. So I'm not going to preach the hard things, but I'm going to preach the easy things. So I'm going to make a little bit of a concession because it seems you're having a hard time dealing with it. And so I'm going to try to make it easy and, more convenient for you. But at the same time, I have withdrawn from my standard or my set of rules and values, which is in this book. Had a couple of people ask me to marry them one time, and they were homosexuals. And I spent a lot of time on the phone with this guy, and I told him, I said, look, I don't know what, if anything, I've said or done to give you the idea that I am okay with this, but I'm not. And I said, what God calls sin, we have to call sin. What God calls wrong, we have to call wrong. And we have to call it wrong even when everybody else is saying it's right. And it's so easy. Maybe you just don't say that it's right. Maybe you just stand silently. But at the moment when they need somebody to say, this is what God says about this subject, you're silent in that moment, you might as well have agreed with them. Silence is golden, and sometimes it's what? Plain yellow. Now, compromise, of course, not always bad. If you've ever been married, you'll know that there's a time for it, right? There's a time for it. Somebody a lot smarter than me came up with this little saying. He said, it's okay to compromise on preference, but not on principle. Now think about that. I can compromise with you guys if you say, Pastor, we need to replace the carpet. That carpet was put down in 1999 or whatever year it was put down, and there's been all kind of blood, sweat, and tears on that, and it really needs to go, and it's outdated and whatever. I can compromise. I say, well, hey, I like brown carpet, and you're like, no, brown? Oh my gosh, I like blue carpet. I really don't care for blue. Well, I like purple carpet. Well, I like polka dot. Hey, we can find a compromise on carpet. I really don't care, sort of, what color the carpet is, but I do care what we do on that carpet. I do care what goes on in that room. I'm going to be able to compromise on some preferences, but I'm not going to compromise on principle. I said to a man one night, was in my office back here, and we were counseling, and I just simply read a scripture, the scripture that we've read here many times to you guys, out of Matthew 18, where God was talking about forgive, and if you don't forgive, your heavenly Father won't forgive you. The rich young, not the rich young ruler, but the man who was forgiven much, and he went and refused to forgive in Matthew 18. And I was essentially telling this man, you're going to need to forgive this person that you have such strong ought against. And he said, that's a bunch of, and he said something that was, and I'm going to compromise a little on some preference. But now when it comes to principle, and I had been sitting back in my chair, and I raised up in my chair, and I got a little closer to him and just in that way, and I said, that is one thing you will not do in this office. And that is talk disrespectfully about the Word of God. Now, if you have a problem with that, there's the door. And he apologized, and we were able to go on. But there are just certain things, church, we just should not compromise on. And there's times when we have to be very strong about our stand. And very, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. As for me and my house, he goes on to say, I think it's the next chapter of Joshua. He goes on to say, you guys do what you want to do when you go back to your houses and to your lands. And I've laid this out for you. This is what God expects of us. Now you do what you want to do. But as for me and my house, he said, if that seems right to you to go after those other gods, chase them. But as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. As for me and my house, there will be a standard that's in this place. And there's going to be some people in my house at times that don't like it. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't like it if they're, I'm not wanting to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm not wanting to upset anybody. But if the Word of God offends you, if the standard or the principle that we are to live by offends you, we got bigger issues. And these are the things we need to be teaching our disciples, because we need some men and some women of God up in the house. We need some that's got some strength, that's got some backbone, that's got the willingness and the ability to say no when sin comes strutting around and doing its thing and causing and asking and calling for compromise after compromise after compromise. There's no time for that. Do you realize how late the hour is? If you're concerned about the people that you're witnessing to and ministering to, if you're concerned about the people that you're going to minister to out west, you're going to tell them the truth. You're going to love them right where they are, because that's what Jesus, the standard he gave us, right? That's the example he set. You're going to love them. You're not going to slander them. You're not going to hate them. You're not going to talk about them behind their back. You're not going to, just cause division with the divisive speech. You're going to love them right where they are, but you're going to be like Jesus in another way too. You're going to love them so much that you're not going to let them stay that way. As much as lies within your ability to make that difference. You're going to tell them the truth. Told a guy the truth one time on the phone. He was calling me about his marriage and his wife and what they were going through. And he said, I think I'm going to do this, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And he said, I called you and asked for your opinion. And I said, okay, you really want my opinion? And he said, yes, I do. And I told him the opposite of everything he had just said. And I said, and if you do that, that's going to create these problems, this problem, this problem, this problem. And he laughed and said, I thought that's what I might get from you, but that's why I called you, because I needed somebody to tell me the truth. He knew the truth. And see, oftentimes, guys, that's the way it is with people that we're in relationship with. Maybe they got one foot in the world and one foot in the church. They need to hear the truth, and they need to be shown it in black and white or red and white. They need to know that this is what God says. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what God says. Jehoshaphat compromised with Ahab, nearly cost him his life. You could compromise and either nearly or cost you your life. It's that serious. It's that serious. This is the game. This is the thing to be focused on. What I'm talking about tonight is the single most important thing in your life if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. And we really need to be putting the time in and acting like it's the single most important thing in our life. Debbie tells me often, and sometimes it's because I've been preaching to her, but she says, honey, you're always preaching. You're always preaching. And I said, I can't help it. I can't help it. We don't have time for anything else. Do we? Do we have time to frolic? Do we have time for me not to be telling the truth, for me to just be going along with you because I don't want to upset you, because I want you to stay at the church, and maybe you got lots of money and hopefully you'll give me 10% of it? I mean, is that what this is about? Or is it life and death? If we see it as it really is, we will see it as this is life and death. It's that serious. It's that serious. Compromise comes slowly, and it comes very subtly. Very slowly, very subtly. You don't think you're compromising. You don't think you're giving in to a nation, a spirit of fear or lust or anger or greed or whatever. You don't think that you're giving into those, but slowly and very subtly. The Lord gave me a word years ago, when I first started out in ministry. I was probably, 19 years old when the Lord gave me this word. And I'd been writing songs, I'd been teaching youth classes, and we'd been going and traveling and singing at different churches, and we had a dream, and we were going after it. And some of the people in our band at the time were kind of falling off the wagon and going and doing weird things and dumb stuff, and we had to kind of clean house a little bit. And I remember saying, and it was a word from the Lord, how quietly a vision perishes. God gives you a vision. He gave you a vision to work for Him. He gave you a vision to devote your life. He gave you a vision to go and minister to the nomads. He gave you a vision to go into the prisons. He gave you a vision to do work with whatever group of people or whatever family, whoever you're working with. He gave you that vision. It's like, this is what God's called me to do. This is what I want to do. I'm going to prepare here and I'm going to prepare there. I'm going and we're doing this and we're going to win souls for Christ. How quietly a vision perishes. If the enemy were to come to you and say, hey, stop ministering, those people, they'll probably find somebody, they'll be all right. You don't need to go do all that. Why don't you just go sit down and go back to some of your old ways? Well, I mean, obviously you'd be like, no, devil, you're a liar. Get out of my face. I'm doing the work I've been called to do. But it perishes quietly. You're met with resistance and you have to push, and then you get tired, and because you're tired, sometimes you go on and you don't see a lot of fruit coming from it, and then you get discouraged, and because you get discouraged, you think, well, what's the use, and well, is anybody listening, or am I making a difference, and all these things, and gradually, slowly, little by little, you start to pull back and pull back and pull back, because it's work. Let's face it, it's work, devoting your life and pouring your life into something like this. Even when you're just working with 2 or 3 or 4 disciples, if that's the only people that you're working with, that's work. Pouring your life into being disappointed time after time after time when they fall and fall and fall, and it doesn't seem like they care sometimes. They're like, why am I doing this?
Pastor,
yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
and I just see it as I pleased God.
Right.
And that's if what I did for no fruit other than pleasing God.
Yeah.
If it makes my Father happy,
Yeah.
that's enough of a fruit to live off of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and think of it this way too. You said if nothing else, it pleases God. A lot of what I did early in my early ministry, from 18 years old on, a lot of what I did some of it was for the people that I ministered to. But guess what? A lot of it was for me. A lot of it was God growing me. God teaching me. God preparing me for the next step, the next stage, the next level, next whatever it is that He's bringing me to. Some of what we're doing is for them, obviously it is, but a big part of it, don't be fooled, is for you. It's for you. It's for you to learn and to grow because you're persevering. You're not looking to the left, you're not looking to the right, and you're persevering, and you're developing those personal disciplines where you read your word every day, and where you pray every day, and where you have this devotion to God, and a lot of it is for you, because He's preparing you. Some of the things you go through, like when Deb and I went through a bunch of stuff, and Ken always said a bunch of times, God's just making a preacher. He's just making a preacher. And of course, I would say, I wish He would hurry, because I'm really getting tired of this. But He's doing that. He's doing that in you, and in you, and in you, and in you, and in you. He is absolutely growing you, challenging you, pushing you. The things you're going through, the things you're enduring, the things you don't like, the hard things, those are the things that are growing you, challenging you, and perfecting you. You want to walk away from that? Why would you want to walk away from what God's doing that is perfecting you? I could give you the answer. It's because we don't know that that's what God's doing. We don't know this is God perfecting us. We think it's just this person causing grief in my life. We don't understand or realize, it hasn't dawned on us yet, that this is God perfecting and changing me. Another reason for the perseverance, another reason for the don't look left, don't look right, look straight ahead. Look to me. Look to me. Look to me is what He's telling us. Keep your focus. Keep your drive. Keep your zeal. Keep your prayers. Well, sometimes when it's all you can do is to take one foot and put it in front of the other foot, just do that. Just do that. Ask me how I know. Because sometimes all you can do is put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes that you got to have help with that. But you know the foot's got to go there. So get the help and get the foot there. Do it. It's the challenge. It's what we're called to do. It's why we are here. You're not here to enjoy the Titans. You're not here to make a big bunch of money. You're here for this work of the perfecting of yourself through the trials that you endure, and the perfecting of those around you, because they need your help. They need your testimony. They need you to not be looking left or looking right. They need to leave, Chris, when they leave and you're discouraged and you're upset, it's like, man, I did all this, and they just go off the wagon again. They need to leave, and they will leave. They will. I promise you, they will leave. You've had some leave you. I promise you, you will have more leave you when you know they weren't ready. But when they leave, and they will, when they come back, let them find you standing in the same place they left you. Don't move. Don't look left. Don't look right. Let them come back and find you standing right where they left you. If there's anything that would be wonderful for people to put on your tombstone, I don't know why we always think about our tombstones at a time like this, but it's to say, he never changed. She never changed. She loved God, and she never changed. She kept her focus. He never changed. He never deviated left or right. He was the same man in 19 whatever as he was in 2000 and whatever. Can they say that about you? Let's hope they can.